MMA Rants and Raves WEC 49. Jamie Varner versus Kamal Shalorus. Guys, I have a serious rant about this fight. Very controversial. Don't agree with a lot of things that happened. But the fight was a very exciting fight. So if you haven't watched it in full yet, watch the fight. Okay, let's talk about it first. First, second, third round, you basically saw a lot of the same. You saw Shalorus coming out very aggressive in a stalking type of posture. He was trying to stalk Varner. He was taking the center of the octagon, trying to be aggressive. He was very aggressive. And then you saw Varner being more elusive, dancing around him, using his footwork, trying to catch him in a trap, and use a counter-punching type of stance and strategy. Now, to a certain point it was working, but Shalorus was using a lot of leg kicks. And the reason he was using them, of course, he was trying to slow him down. And that's the best way to slow down a fighter that you can't catch. Fire leg kicks, they do a lot of damage, and they weaken the legs of the fighter. It slows him down, and then it forces him to engage more in close contact and brawls, and hopefully for takedowns. And that's what I was surprised at. I mean, I agree with the announcers. He didn't go for takedowns earlier in the fight. He was just trying to throw a lot of leg kicks. I mean, they were having an effect. It was a good strategy. And maybe the takedowns weren't really there, the opportunities, because Varner was just really quick. This is a very, very speedy guy, especially when you go down the weight classes, the guys get quicker. So, you know, Varner had the speed advantage over Shalorus, it seemed, in the fight. So it was just basically Shalorus throwing a lot of leg kicks, and you see Varner trying to counterpunch, also throwing some leg kicks. Then at the end of the first round, you basically saw Varner catch Shalorus, wicked combination, and it had Shalorus backpedaling all the way to the cage. Then they started to engage again, but then Shalorus got his composure back, absorbed it, and started to counter, and then Varner wisely continued a strategy of being elusive and going into a situation where he would force Shalorus to try and catch him. So he's a really cerebral fighter. He knew what he was doing. Moving on to the second round, and this is the story of the fight. Much of the same happens, but within the second round you see Shalorus throwing a groin kick. And this was the second one of the fight. The first one, you see the ref warning him, which is what they always do. The second one, he took a point away, which is what they usually always do as well. That is, if the other fighter can continue to fight. Those groin kicks, they can be devastating. So the second one was pretty bad, deducted a point. Then, in the third round, obviously, you know, Shalorus saw that he was behind in the fight, especially with the point deduction, and he had to do something decisive, so he gets a takedown. And of course, this is what he should have done earlier, but like I said, maybe the opportunity wasn't there because of Varner's speed, and of course, he probably was slowing down. It didn't seem that way because he looked pretty good, pretty fluid, his footwork was still good, but regardless, he got the takedown. But the story of the third round is the story of the fight. Another groin kick, and this one was devastating. I mean, it was right there. He got all of it, and he just crumbled on the ground. I was like, I felt the pain too. It was really, really bad. I was basically just going to turn the TV off. I said, you know what, that's it. That's the end of the fight. He's going to get DQ'd. You get warned, a point, then, you know, third time you do it, I mean, 3 strikes, you're out. That's it, DQ. But then, what? First of all, not only was he not DQ'd, okay, he didn't even take a point away. I'm like, what? You already took a point away after the second groin kick. How could you not take a point away after the third one, which was the worst one of all of them? And instead he gives him a warning. I couldn't figure that out. How in the world is that possible? You know, it's like you commit a crime and you do the same crime 3 times. The first time you might get a warning, the second time you get fined, and the third time you get warned again. I just didn't understand that. I just totally disagree with what the ref did there. And this really came back to decide the outcome of the fight. Because you saw in the third round, Shalorus comes with that takedown, which the judges saw meant something. Even though Varner was very good on the bottom. I mean, it seemed to be he was doing more damage at the bottom than Shalorus was on top. He was throwing those elbow strikes to Shalorus's head. And, you know, he even got out of it at the end. He flipped out of that he actually got out of Shalorus's grip, and he got back to his feet. So he didn't look bad on the ground either, even though Shalorus did get the takedown, and of course, was the guy on top. So the judges look at that. But if you look at all 3 rounds, it was a really close fight. And I thought that Varner won the fight, because if you take the point deduction and you look at the 3 rounds, they were pretty much even, but the point deduction should kind of decide the fight to go one way rather than the other. Because, like I said, it was close. But guess what happens? And you rarely see this. The judges called it a draw. I'm like, you know something? All the ref had to do was just take off another point. Because, of course, those groin kicks were not intentional, It was strictly accidental, but if you keep on kicking a guy, especially 3 times, you have to stop doing that. You just don't throw the leg kicks or throw them higher up, like what the announcers were saying. You just can't do that kind of stuff. I mean, that's really what decided the fight. He didn't get that second point deduction. If there was a second point deduction, definitely that would have tipped the favor into Varner, and he would have won the fight. So I guess that was the deciding factor, and it's really unfortunate for Varner. I mean, he should have walked away with this fight. And let me just say one thing before this closes. I'm telling you, if there's ever a tough guy award in mixed martial arts, this kid Varner is going to get my vote. He fought through 3 groin kicks, a broken hand, and a broken foot, and he was still fighting. That all happened, and he was still fighting, still fluid, dancing around, showing footwork. Unbelievable. Tough guy, this Jamie Varner. Anyways, it was a good fight. 2 talented fighters. Unfortunate how things happened. I'd like to know what you thought about the fight, the referee's call, and the judge's decision. Please leave your comments below the video, rate this video, and subscribe, and thank you for tuning in.